Breaking this evening, federal judge Aileen, a Trump appointee who's overseeing the Mar-a-Lago seized documents case, handed another big assist to Team Trump. She has stepped in and effectively overruled the special master, Judge Raymond Dearie, who Trump's team had specifically requested. Dearie had demanded Team Trump present any evidence or formal claim to suggest the FBI planted evidence. Tonight, Judge Cannon siding with Team Trump, saying that with regard to identifying the possibly planted evidence, quote, there shall be no separate requirement on plaintiff at this stage. The court's appointment order did not contemplate that obligation. She's saying that Dearie, who was handpicked by Trump's team, overstepped his mandate. But Cannon, tonight, did side with Dearie and the DOJ on a smaller but also important issue. Trump's team is going to have to specify for the special master which kind of privilege they think applies to each document. Attorney-client privilege versus the more broad or vague category of executive privilege. It's something Trump's lawyers had also resisted when ordered to do so by Dearie. Now, look, he's been trying to get the Trump team to be specific on its positions on the documents, which they have fought at every turn. Dearie had also demanded Trump's team back up the former president's public claim that he declassified documents and identify which ones. But after an appeals court stepped in and overruled Judge Cannon, that became irrelevant. Now, keep in mind that Trump has been forced to pay for every hour of this special master's work. And now Judge Dearie is also asking for a $500 per hour assistant judge to help him out, also on Mr. Trump's dime, something the former president certainly can't be happy about. Mr. Trump is also certainly coming to regret this appointment. In an unsealed letter sent this week, his legal team argued Dearie is exceeding the authority granted to him by Cannon, and to some degree, she agreed. Judge Cannon also ruling today that she will give them an additional 2 weeks for the special master review to play out, though she now says Trump can wait until the end of that review to identify which documents he wants to assert privilege over. There's even a back and forth over something as basic as a vendor to digitize the thousands of seized documents for review. The government now says it'll guarantee payment in order to secure a company, a low-key dig at Trump's history of not settling up on his bills. And in more bad news for Trump's legal efforts, it appears his star attorney, the one he hired less than a month ago for $3 million up front, has been benched on the case. Chris Kise has a very good reputation, former Solicitor General of Florida, former advisor to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He left his big-name law firm to go work for Donald Trump. Now, one has to wonder if it's connected to the now openly antagonistic back and forth with the special master who Trump asked for, and it was costing him a lot of money. It's worth noting that several of Trump's attorneys are themselves already under legal scrutiny by the feds, including Evan Corcoran, Alina Habba, and Christina Bobb, who reportedly has now hired her own attorney. Kise had joined the team just in time to argue in front of Judge Cannon in Florida why she should appoint a special master to review the documents for issues of privilege. And they won that argument. But shortly after, the appeals court overruled the judge, and the government was allowed to continue its review of the documents that really matter in this case. That is, the 100 or so classified records that represent the biggest potential legal problems for Mr. Trump. The rest are being evaluated by the special master. And so is Kise now being blamed for the special master mess? Or is he unwilling to stake his career on shaky legal arguments and efforts to avoid presenting basic responses to the special master? Kise and the Trump team deny that he's been sidelined, but it is a fact that his name was not on the latest Trump team brief. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, who has been much more measured than many other legal analysts on his various assessments. Renato, thank you very much for coming back on the show. I almost didn't recognize you there in the hoodie, so I'm calling you by different names. Now, it seems to me that this ruling is going to prevent the Trump team from ever having to say that evidence was planted, meaning it allows Donald Trump to go out and suggest it, but in court, they never have to address it. You disagree?
I think that's probably right, unless Deary circles back to that after they see all the evidence and says, okay, now that you've seen everything, now that you know exactly what they have, do you now have any assertion along those lines, or are you making any claims? I don't know whether that happens or not. You can tell here I'm being measured again, Dan.
Yep.
But I think that it's unlikely, and at the very least, it puts it off for now, which is a victory for the Trump team, no question.
Well, and this is another win for Team Trump. I mean, it does seem to me very unusual that this judge who appoints a special master, who's now supposed to be overseeing the process, is now coming in and saying, I'm going to overrule the special master on requests that he has made. I'm not saying it's unprecedented. I'm not saying she doesn't have the power to do it, but it does seem very unusual to me.
Yeah, it is, Dan. Usually what happens is a judge appoints a special master to get things off their plates, right? They're very busy. Federal judges have a very, heavy dockets. They're trying to keep up with everything. They want the special master to make the decisions, and they're going to rubber stamp them. I haven't really seen anything like this. It's too early to say that she's going to be micromanaging everything he does or overseeing everything he does. But if I was in the government, I'd be concerned about this move.
Right. And again, I'm one of these people who doesn't typically like the fact that every judge now in America is identified, federal judge, by which president appointed them. But as you saw in the introduction, I did mention that she was appointed by President Trump. And part of the reason that I did that is, A, so people have more information and they can decide for themselves, but B, because there have been a lot of suggestions that her initial ruling, which got overturned by an appellate court, was viewed as almost radically in favor of Donald Trump. And now she's stepping in again and sort of protecting the Trump team from having to disclose exactly whether they're going to say that evidence was planted. Because I want to play this piece of sound, because this is Donald Trump on Sean Hannity's show certainly making the suggestion.
The problem that you have is they go into rooms, they won't let anybody near them. They wouldn't even let them in the same building. Did they drop anything into those piles? Or did they do it later? There's no chain of custody here with them.
Wouldn't that be on videotape potentially?
No, I don't think so. I mean, they're in a room.
But that is precisely, right, the sort of argument that the judge was saying, that Judge Deary, the special master, was saying, let us know, tell us. If you think that there was evidence planted, lay it out. And now the judge is saying, you know what, you don't actually have to do that potentially ever.
Yeah, look, it's a questionable ruling on her part. And I have to say that, in every defendant in every case, or actually not a defendant, but everyone who has their premises searched is in the same situation as Trump. They don't really know what the FBI was doing or the DEA while they were in their home. That said, I think Trump's team's argument would be, we don't know exactly what's there. The inventory is necessarily vague because obviously some of these documents not only are classified, but are, secret or sensitive in some way. So it's very general. We can't be sure what was allegedly planted or not. I think it's defensible for her to overrule him here, but unusual. And I have to say, there's going to be a lot of people drawing the implication you did. While there's Trump judges that were Trump appointees on the 11th Circuit who did overrule her, I want to point that out.
Yep.
Nonetheless, there is an appearance that she's trying to help Trump in this case.
Right, because just because someone was appointed by Trump or by Biden or by Clinton does not mean that they're necessarily going to side with them. And I always point this out again and again. That doesn't tell us where they're going to rule. But it's starting to feel like I was even more surprised by the judge stepping in here and overruling tonight this special master than I was in her initial ruling granting a special master. That's how striking I found it, that she's now, you used the word micromanaging the very special master who Trump's team selected, picked, she approved, and appointed.
Yeah, and after getting slapped down by the 11th Circuit, I mean, that also surprises me. You have to remember, Dan, she's now in a situation where the 11th Circuit basically said her prior ruling was wrong. I mean, the reasoning of it was excoriated by the Court of Appeals, and she's got a more experienced federal judge who's been critical of her. I mean, he's not been, hiding the fact, Judge Deary, that he disagrees with her approach. So I think that, she's not taking that to heart here, and that's surprising.
Very quickly, what do you make of this, of Chris Kise, well-respected Florida attorney, part of Trump's team? I don't know if you want to call it sideline, suddenly not being involved in the document-related cases.
Shows you why great lawyers don't want to work for Donald Trump. That man left his large, well-known law firm. I think it was Foley & Lardner he was with. Left that law firm to go to start a separate firm to work for Trump, and now he's already sidelined. I have to say it explains why he doesn't have good legal representation.
But it also explains why he asked for $3 million up front. And so if he got his $3 million up front, hey, you want to sideline me? Okay, I'm going to go take my money. And I'll talk to you guys when you're ready. Renato Mariotti, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.